Politics is a game of power, ambition, and influence. For Senator James Harlan, it was all-consuming. Over the years, he had built a reputation as a charismatic leader who knew how to play the system. To his supporters, he was a visionary. To his critics, he was ruthless. But even Harlan had his limits, lines he wouldn't cross, or so it seemed. Across the aisle stood his rival, Congressman Daniel Bryce. Bryce was young, energetic, and gaining traction fast. He was everything Harlan wasn't: honest, approachable, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. His popularity was growing, and with it, Harlan's fear of being overshadowed. The tension between the two men was no secret. Bryce had publicly accused Harlan of corruption, while Harlan dismissed Bryce as inexperienced and reckless. Their debates were fiery, their words cutting. But what the public didn't see was how deeply this rivalry ran. For Harlan, Bryce wasn't just a political opponent. He was an existential threat. As the next election drew closer, Harlan's frustration turned into desperation. Polls showed Bryce gaining ground, and rumors began circulating that Bryce had uncovered damaging information about Harlan's dealings. If Bryce went public with what he knew, it could ruin everything Harlan had worked for. Harlan's inner circle advised him to focus on the campaign, to fight Bryce with policies and public appearances. But Harlan wanted certainty. He needed to eliminate the risk, once and for all. That's when a chilling idea began to take shape in his mind. What if Bryce wasn't around to challenge him? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you these gripping stories of betrayal, power, and justice. Harlan began to reach out to people who operated in the shadows, fixers who handled problems for a price. At first, he told himself it was just to gather information, to learn what Bryce had on him. But as the days passed, Harlan's plan grew darker. He wasn't just looking for dirt on Bryce. He was looking for a way to silence him permanently. One night, in a dimly lit room far from the public eye, Harlan met with a man known only as Victor. Victor was notorious for his ability to make problems disappear. Harlan laid out his concerns, careful not to use direct language, but Victor understood. For the right price, he assured Harlan, Bryce could be taken care of. Harlan hesitated, knowing the gravity of what he was considering, but in the end, his fear of losing outweighed his conscience. Victor set the plan in motion. Bryce's movements were monitored, his routines mapped out. It was only a matter of time before Victor found the perfect opportunity. Meanwhile, Harlan went about his life as usual, smiling for the cameras and delivering speeches, all while carrying the weight of his secret. Congressman Daniel Bryce was a creature of habit. Every morning, he jogged through the park near his home, a ritual that gave him time to think and plan for the day ahead. It was a routine he had followed for years, one that felt safe and familiar. But on this particular morning, he wasn't alone. Victor's team had been watching Bryce for weeks, learning his every move. They knew the park would be quiet at that hour, with few witnesses and plenty of escape routes. It was the perfect location for their plan. As Bryce jogged along the winding path, a figure emerged from the shadows, blending seamlessly into the scenery. Everything was in place. The attack was swift and brutal. Bryce was struck from behind and collapsed to the ground. His assailant left him unconscious, ensuring it would appear as a robbery gone wrong. Bryce's phone and wallet were taken to sell the illusion. The attacker disappeared as quickly as he had appeared, leaving Bryce bleeding and unresponsive on the cold pavement. But Victor's plan wasn't as perfect as he thought. A passing dog walker spotted Bryce lying on the path and immediately called for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing him to the hospital. Against all odds, Bryce survived the attack, though he remained in critical condition. News of the assault spread quickly, sparking outrage and sympathy from across the nation. Harlan was stunned when he heard the news. The plan was supposed to be clean, leaving no loose ends. Instead, Bryce was alive, and the public was rallying around him like never before. Harlan knew he had to act fast to cover his tracks. He contacted Victor, demanding to know what had gone wrong. Victor assured him there was no evidence linking them to the attack, but Harlan wasn't convinced. Meanwhile, detectives began piecing together what had happened. Bryce's injuries suggested he had been targeted, but the apparent robbery left questions unanswered. Why would someone attack a congressman in such a calculated way? And why hadn't the attacker fled with more valuable items? The investigation intensified as police reviewed surveillance footage and interviewed witnesses, searching for any leads. Before we reveal the shocking twist that followed, take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Stories like these demand to be heard, and your support helps us uncover the truth behind power, betrayal, and justice. In the hospital, Bryce regained consciousness long enough to provide a crucial detail. He remembered seeing a figure watching him in the park earlier that week. It was a vague description, but it gave detectives something to work with. They widened their search, pulling security footage from nearby areas and interviewing anyone who might have seen something unusual. Then a breakthrough. A witness came forward, claiming to have seen a car parked near the park entrance just before the attack. The description matched a rental car that police traced back to Victor. The noose was tightening, and Victor knew it. Desperate to avoid arrest, he went into hiding, leaving his team to fend for themselves. But one of his associates, caught off guard by the investigation, made a critical mistake. He left fingerprints on Bryce's stolen phone. The fingerprints led directly to Victor's operation. Police raided his hideout, uncovering a trove of evidence linking him to the attack. Among the items seized was a burner phone containing messages from Harland, messages that, while vague, hinted at his involvement. As the pieces fell into place, the case against Harland grew stronger. Detectives realized they weren't just dealing with a violent crime, they were unraveling a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power. The arrest of Victor and his associates marked a turning point in the investigation. As police combed through the evidence, they found undeniable links to Senator James Harland. The burner phone recovered from Victor's hideout contained encrypted messages that investigators painstakingly decoded. While Harland had been careful to avoid direct language, the tone and timing of the messages left little doubt about his involvement in the plot to harm Bryce. Harland's calm facade began to crack as the walls closed in. Publicly, he expressed outrage over the attack on Bryce, calling it a cowardly act and demanding justice. Privately, he scrambled to erase any trace of his connection to Victor, but it was too late. Investigators had already obtained a warrant to search Harland's offices and personal devices. What they found was damning. Deleted emails, suspicious financial transactions, and more encrypted messages tied him directly to Victor's organization. Harland had not only paid for the hit, but had also provided information about Bryce's routine, ensuring the attack would be successful. The motive was clear. Harland wanted to eliminate his most formidable rival and secure his grip on power. The fallout was swift. News of Harland's involvement broke like a tidal wave, sending shockwaves through the political world. His colleagues distanced themselves, and his supporters were left reeling. The once respected senator was now the face of a scandal that threatened to topple his entire career. Meanwhile, Bryce, recovering from his injuries, vowed to fight back. In a powerful statement from his hospital bed, he condemned Harland's actions and called for accountability. His words struck a chord with the public, who rallied behind him in a show of solidarity. Bryce's approval ratings soared, while Harland's plummeted. Before we reveal how the story ended, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Your support allows us to bring you these gripping tales of betrayal, power, and justice. The trial was one of the most high-profile cases in recent history. Prosecutors laid out a meticulous timeline, showing how Harland had orchestrated the attack on Bryce. They presented evidence of payments to Victor's group, encrypted messages outlining Bryce's schedule, and testimonies from Victor's associates, who agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced sentences. Harland's defense team tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, claiming he had been framed by Victor, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than a day before delivering their verdict, guilty on all charges, including conspiracy to commit murder and corruption. Harland was sentenced to life in prison, his fall from grace complete. Bryce's recovery was long and difficult, but he emerged stronger than ever. The attack, while horrifying, had only strengthened his resolve to fight for justice. He went on to win the election in a landslide, using his platform to push for stricter laws against political corruption. Harland's story serves as a chilling reminder of how far some will go in their pursuit of power. It's a tale of betrayal, ambition, and the consequences of unchecked greed, but it's also a testament to the resilience of those who refuse to be silenced. What do you think? Could Harland's rise to power have been stopped earlier, or was his downfall inevitable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another gripping tale. Your support helps us uncover the darkest truths and share stories of justice and accountability. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, justice always finds its way.